The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody, or happy time zone, I guess is what we say. Shelby's not here to do the introduction, and it's like, oh gosh, did we talk about
I
who?
know. What do we do? She's here, but her camera is not working.
Shelby, say hi.
Hi. Yeah, gotta love Florida internet.
Well, just because she's not on screen doesn't mean she's not here and hanging out with us. And we are excited to be here. Welcome to Banter, and want to welcome Payton Miller with Open Security to our Hacking Cast today. So welcome, Payton. We're glad you're here, and we love our friends over at Open Security. They're one of our platinum sponsors for Wild West Hackin' Fest. So we're really grateful to them, and we're really grateful to have you be part of this. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you?
So actually, today I just hit my 1-year anniversary with Open Security.
Nice.
I've been there a whole year now. And it's interesting because before I actually got there, I was pretty skeptical about them as an organization. And so I actually reached out to Jason Blanchard to figure out whether or not it's a good company. And it's funny that that's how our paths have crossed. And now I'm back presenting for you guys like a year later.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Great.
Well,
I think it's kind of ironic how the circles have turned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and we know Matt Toussaint very well. I mean, I know him very well from our time together at Sands. So we love Matt. So good choice.
Yeah, he's awesome.
So I actually, all of my background and actually how I got into contact with Matt was actually through Sands. So I played through their CTF team. Apologies, somebody's coming in. So I played through their CTF event, which they're actually hosting right now. I think it's today and tomorrow. And they're giving out the ACS undergraduate scholarships for the top 100 winners. So I played through that. I got my scholarship. I went through Sands, and my last class was with Matt. And so it's kind of interesting how just everything lined up for me.
Shelby, it looks like your slides switched off.
Yeah. There's a suspicious, here we go. All right. But I did want to say, Velda, in GoToWebinar, somebody said, always a pleasure to see you on screen, Velda, from Tallinn in Estonia.
Oh, thank you so much. And we're so glad to have you here. That's so kind of you. We're glad to be here, and we're always excited to hear we have people from all over the world joining us. So glad to see you're here, and thanks for reaching out. Exciting. Eric G, I said, I posted a GIF. If you're not familiar with this, is Banter. This is not the actual webcast. We show up early because you show up early. It's just a vicious cycle that we just keep doing, but we're really glad to be here. We're really glad to have the opportunity to just chat about nothing for a while, kind of. But you know what? If you have any questions for us, or if you have anything that you want us to discuss, please feel free to put it in the Discord. We are in the Wild West Hackin' Fest Discord. We are in the live chat, and you'll see the little bowl with horns on the live chat. It's under the Hacking Cast and Roundups. So please feel free to come over there and say hi if you've got a topic you want to discuss. We love to discuss things. So, we are the Wild West Hackin' Fest and anti-siphon training team. So all of us that are on here, with the exception of Payton, do something. And you know what? Let's just go around the horn and kind of introduce ourselves. Jake, you want to go first?
Oh, of course, I'm first.
Because
I sit around and stare on most of these things.
Yeah.
So I'm here for. No, I'm Jake, the Trapper. My primary function is kind of cyber range, managing that, and then helping out with the various things on the websites and the training classes and all of that fun stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. Miss Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm the innkeeper here. I'm going to fix my name. I'm just getting ready to go do that, but I'll talk first. I'm the innkeeper, so I am the director of customer service for Wild West Hackin Fest and anti-siphon training. So anytime you send in any support tickets, those kinds of things, that comes to me, or actually the phone. If you call BHIS and you request customer service, that's me too. So anything customer related, I'm here to help and support. So that's pretty much what I do.
And if you haven't called the line, you might want to, because Megan's just full of information.
Oh, I'm full of a lot of things. Information is one of them.
If I call right now, will you answer?
Yeah.
Mr. Jason Crafton.
Hello, I am Jason Crafton, aka the Hawk. I do stuff and things here. No, I'm just kidding. I run most of the webcasts, so I'm usually on the back end. I do as much help as I can in the Discord server as well. I'm sure a lot of you have dealt with me at one point in time in Discord or in the webcast. So yeah, I'm pretty much always here. I'm just never on screen. So.
Well, we're excited. This is like the first time I think we've had you on a Hackin Cast, isn't it? Or
Yeah,
it's one of the first times.
I think so.
Yeah,
We're going to be famous.
I'm already famous.
Oh,
He's the Hawk.
That's
Yeah.
how you heard. He's in so many
Kind of a
Discord
big deal.
servers. He's a big
Kind
deal.
of a big deal. Yeah,
He's a big
he is
deal.
kind of a big deal. You're right.
yeah. I have many leather-bound books. Okay, and my apartment smells of mahogany, so I'm kind of a big deal.
Ryan, you
That's
want to
fine.
talk about you?
I hate talking about me. I am known as the Shootist on Discord, and I do a lot of the video related stuff for BHIS and Wild West Hackin Fest and sometimes ACM. And that sums it up. I don't think there's anything else to say.
Well, we're glad
He
that
also
you're here.
does the
Ryan.
news.
Oh, yes, we do a weekly show called Talking About News on the Black Hills Information Security YouTube channel, which you can catch at 4:30 on Mondays. And then I also do, with Bo Bullock, one of our pen testers and instructors at Anti-Siphon, a CoinSec podcast for Bitcoin and all that related stuff. That's on Fridays at 12:30. So 2 podcasts, broadcasts a week, plus these webcasts. So we've got a lot of stuff going on.
And plus, he has a soundboard that whenever we
Yes.
say anything really stupid, he makes sure to capture and play back.
Yeah, I don't see now they're going to expect it, and I don't have it ready to go because I
Oh,
didn't open that
I'm
app.
glad you don't have it ready to go.
Son of a gun.
Now
Must
you guys
have a
see
lot
why
of
I
stuff
sit
from
here
you,
quietly.
I know. I've given him tons of content. I can tell you that.
There's a lot of great stuff that taken out of context would be
Yeah,
just
totally me.
Yeah.
I definitely, after we have any sort of live thing, one, I never watch it again because I can't subject myself to that. But I think to myself, why? Why did you just say that? Why? Just be quiet. Sometimes you just need to be quiet. Like right now, but I just can't do it. It's a nervous, like I need to fill the time. So.
So we have one more that's not on screen, and I just want to make sure that we get Shelby in here because she's such a vital part of what we do here in making sure all of the stuff kind of gets pulled together. So Shelby, we'll talk about you a little bit.
Sure, yeah, if you guys can hear me okay.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Awesome. I'm Shelby, otherwise known as the Kid on Discord. I take care of, pulling together all of the trainings Anti-Siphon does, along with the webcasts we do over at Wild West Hackin Fest. If you've taken any trainings with Anti-Siphon, you've probably gotten an email or two from me or seen me on Discord or one of these pre-show banters. I'm also known for the pink cat ears on my headset. And yeah, that pretty much sums up what I do.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Well, and as you know, I'm the deputy, and I don't really bring any value to the table because it's the rest of the team who does it all. No, I get the pleasure of working with the greatest team in the world. So, you know, very, very, very fortunate there. And for many of you who don't know, we like to call it the Strand family of organizations. Wild West Hackin Fest, Anti-Siphon Training, Black Hills Information Security, and ACM are all owned by John and Erica. And we are sister companies, and we walk hand in hand with each other. So we're really fortunate to be part of that and be part of this organization. So lots of good stuff over here. So. Glad to be on. We did have a question here on Discord, and somebody is asking if this they got themselves bloody double booked, and they want to know if it's being recorded. And the answer is yes, it's being recorded, and it will be available immediately after this session on YouTube. So whoop whoop! Thanks, Ryan, for making that happen.
Hey, Megan, in GoToWebinar, somebody's commenting about your chair and your positioning. They said your chair with the lights looks like a throne from Game of Thrones.
Well,
it's just the positioning of your screen behind your chair.
Listen, I am the queen of my house.
Boy, here we go.
Because I am the only female here, so I am definitely the queen of the castle. But it does kind of look like a little bit of a crazy. It's my costume. It's Halloween week. I wish I had dragons though. That'd be cool. But Velda was talking about anti-siphon training. We do have some really cool training coming up on our schedule. We just launched a new website, which Shelby glossed over the fact that she was instrumental in getting that together. But we do have a lot of training coming up over the next, several months. On Monday, we're having Getting Started in Security with BHIS and MITRE ATT&CK. That's a John Strand Pay What You Can class. So for those of you who aren't familiar with those types of classes, and John is an amazing instructor, that will start on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we have Hacker Ops, which is the first running. It's one of our pen testers. Ralph will be doing that class. And then we also have Network Forensic Hunting with Packets with Jonathan Ham. So he's a good friend of the family, and he will be giving that class next week. But I'll go ahead and post a link to our upcoming events in Discord for anyone that wants to get some information about our upcoming training classes. And also a really cool thing that John and Erica have encouraged all of us to do is give back to the community, which we do pretty regularly here. But with all of our classes, 10% of the proceeds go towards either a charity of the instructor's choice or some sort of an open source project. So that's pretty important to our organization. And the pricing of the training is definitely a lot lower than anyone else that's giving training out there, but we do also give back to the community that way.
The great part about our training, Megan, too, is I think it's the fact that our instructors are real world practitioners, right? I mean, they've been in the industry, they know what's trending, they have their hands on the pulse, kind of. So I think it's just awesome that we're able to make training affordable, make it available for people. If you're, whether you're new to the industry, we have people from all walks of life, really, that are part of our community, and it's really cool to be part of that, and to know that the mission of these instructors is more so to share their knowledge and share their experiences, and to be able to educate a multitude of people. So it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting. And I want to bring up one more thing before we talk about Way West, because we are going to talk about that here in a minute. But we have a roundup that's coming up on December 2nd. It is a Purple Team roundup. It is noon to 4, and we have our good friend Dan DeCloss from Plex Tracks. We love Plex Tracks. They're one of our sponsors at Wild West Hackin Fest, and Dan will be our chairman. It is happening. It'll be some great contact. We have Adam Mashinshi. I'm going to mispronounce it, and I know I am. As well as George Ortiz. I think I've got it right this time, who have committed to speak. We also have Evan and Jake. Can you help me remember Evan's last name?
It's Pena. Evan Pena.
Yeah, who have committed to speak, and we have a couple more slots to fill, but we're super excited. We're super excited about having Dan DeCloss be with us, and of course our friends at Plex Tracks. We're just really excited about that. So I had to get that one out of the way as well. So anyway, back to other fun things. We've decided on a theme for our Wild West, Way West event in San Diego, and I cannot wait. I was just on the phone with Rick Wisser and David Fletcher, who are putting together some really fun labs, and our theme is You Hacked My Battleship. And we've got some fun things kind of around that. So if you have the opportunity to come hang out with us in San Diego, please do. It's going to be a great time. And I was just telling these guys before we opened this pre-banter session, is I think San Diego would probably have to fall into the ocean before we cancel the in-person portion. I think it's going to take more than
that. Said that.
Right.
I know. So, and there's sledding down this horse.
Yeah, we do have a lot of different things open. It will be in person and virtual. We definitely, with COVID, have realized that having that virtual component is hugely important for those that can't attend in person. And we've done a lot of really cool things. I think with Deadwood having to move all virtual, we really got a lot of positive feedback about the interaction. I know everybody has virtual event fatigue. We all want to get out and see people, but we really try and make it as interactive as we can, even though we are virtual. We have our call for papers that is open. So please, if you or you know anyone that would like to present, please let us know. We are looking to, get some new faces. So definitely let us know and submit your talks. The virtual registration, I believe it looks like, is open now too. So previously it was just the in-person portion, but we definitely have the virtual open now too. So, and the dates for the conference is going to be May 4th through the 6th. It's going to be at the Wyndham in San Diego Bayside, but we will also have some pre-conference training, which will be May 3rd and 4th. We're still working on the different classes that we will offer there, but that should hopefully be up and available soon once we get those nailed down.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Lots of fun stuff going on over here. So check out our website. We have a website at Anti-Siphon.
I know, so fancy.
Yeah, it's very cool, very cool, very cool. So I just posted something because we've been talking all about what we're doing over here, but I'd love to hear where everybody's from. I went ahead and put I didn't put my normal Nebraska sign in there, and I know that Jason Crafton would be like, there's no place like Nebraska.
Slagna here. Hi, Slagna.
Hey, Velda, on that note, it was a great weekend for football.
Yeah.
Nebraska didn't lose.
That's a shame.
It was a bye week.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
I was really excited there for a second for you guys.
See, that goes to show right there that I don't even follow it, because it's a shame. I think I'm one of like 2% of Nebraskans that don't like the college football team.
Well, you know what, Jason?
No,
I will tell you this, Jake and Jason. I won fantasy football this week. Woo. I think I'm about like Nebraska. I'm like 3-4 or something now. It's crazy. Well, we got people from all over. We got Fredericksburg, Virginia, close to Megan, Texas.
Oh, really? Fredericksburg, Virginia. Hi, Darren. I'm just outside Fredericksburg too.
Georgia, Appleton, Wisconsin, Toledo, Ohio. Did you guys ever watch the show MASH?
Yes. Yeah, we're aging ourselves a little bit there, Velda, but yes, I definitely watch MASH.
Hey, you know what? When I first started here, I wanted to be known as Festus. That's what I wanted, was Festus at the Wild West rather than the deputy. Who knows who Festus is?
I know just because I saw the previous discussions. I did not know before the previous discussions about it.
Well, I'll tell you what. Oh, somebody's in Virginia Beach. Oh no, somebody thought you were down by Virginia Beach.
No, I'm more by Kings Dominion, Darren. That's where I went and saw Slegna with his Clydesdale, which was amazing. We talked about it before, but I just have to reiterate, the Clydesdale was amazing that he has. So for those of you who are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, one of our nerd herders lives close-ish to me, so I got to go hang out with him at the state fair and see his Clydesdale, and it was really exciting. It was kind of like a dream. So, and my children made me wear a banner that said "Birthday Girl." So all these people kept, like, I forgot that I had it on, like a sash. And so, like, all these people kept wishing me happy birthday, and I'm old and can't really hear. So, like, my kids were like, "Mom, they were saying happy birthday." I was like, didn't hear it. So that was awkward.
Oh, see, you have the excuse of being old and partially deaf. I just ignored it.
Right. I mean, I realized at the fair, I was like, oh my God, I'm officially old, because people are making the joke of, oh, are you 21? And so I was like, oh, they know that I'm way over 21. So now I get it. Like, oh, so I'm like the old lady that they're like, hey, ha ha ha, you just turned 21. It was sad, but.
Okay, I'm excited. Talons knows who Festus was.
Oh. Is it that gift that's in there? Is that Festus?
That's right, Festus. He was the deputy. He was Marshal Dillon's deputy.
Marshal Matt Dillon.
Marshal Matt Dillon. He always talk like this. Don't mean no, never mind. I used to write my emails. When I was writing emails, I used to write them like in his verse, and John Strand was kind of like, So I stopped that. But now you can actually read what I write.
Zelda, what was Festus's mule's name? I don't remember.
What was the mule's name?
Trivia.
I don't know. Can I Google it quick?
What? And this was from
Absolutely
which
no. I don't remember either. I was asking you. I just remember he rode a mule, not a horse.
What was the show called?
It was Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke.
Okay. I might have to go back and rewatch some old episodes.
Okay, I'm looking for it.
Somebody in chat said
Did he
Ruth.
have a name? Why did Festus name his mule Ruth on Gunsmoke? Oh goodness. I won't say this, but I have a sister by the name of Ruth.
So it looks like Ruth is what people are saying. So.
And it was. Festus walked with a hitch in his get along. Yes, he did.
Don't
yes,
we all?
All right. So here's the next question. What's everybody doing for Halloween?
Trick or treating.
Are we dressing up? Are we doing anything fun?
I will probably dress up as a witch. That's what I dress up as most days, but.
So you're saying you don't have to do much dressing up?
Yeah.
Is that a
So I just
costume?
put my hat on.
Any big plans, guys? Brian, nothing?
We are doing kind of a family thing at one of the big resorts here,
Oh, fun.
taking kiddos swimming and related stuff.
Yeah, you can do that in Florida where it's not
Yeah.
like, 10 degrees.
Yeah, and the resorts have heated pools too, so that also helps.
Right.
It's like, now, are you really doing the hot springs in Colorado?
Yeah, he had said that he wasn't able to help next week, and I was giving him a hard time, jokingly in a lovingly way, but he is going to Colorado.
Spoiling all the kids in my neighborhood with bucket loads of candy. I think I'm going to buy the big candy bars this year because I want to be the popular.
Oh man, those were always the best houses.
My wife is doing that.
Size candy bars.
Well, the great part last year, nobody showed up, so guess what? We had candy bars forever.
Yeah.
The stores sell those boxes now for like $10, $15, and they've got like 20 candy bars in it.
Yeah.
Not bad, but
That's what I'll be doing. Christy,
I think is
78 says she's packing to move. I need
Oh wow.
that sounds like loads of fun.
6 months out.
I think this year is the last year for trick or treating for my kids.
Really? How old is your
Yeah.
youngest?
She's 9. She'll be let's see. She'll be 10 in April of next year. And they all said they didn't want to go trick or treating this year. And then so I was like, all right, cool, we're not going trick or treating. Awesome. And then they were like, just last month they were like, oh, I want to be this for Halloween. And I'm like, whoa, I thought we weren't trick or treating. And they're like, no, we're going.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to give up the candy.
I know. I lived in this place called Colonial Beach, Virginia, and it was like a really small like town, but there were sidewalks and it was all the houses were real close together. And there would be like grown like people like in their 30s and 40s that would come and trick or treat at my house. Like no children were anywhere. I was like here, and so I would save out like the one like dum to give them like this tiny little sucker. Like that's all you get, dude. Like the kids get the real stuff.
I think you were trying to say a little bit more than that by giving them a dum.
Right?
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
All right,
it is.
guys, we should probably get this show on the road and let Payton
I know.
do
Is
it.
Payton there? Oh, there he is.
I was like,
Yeah, I'm here.
so we're gonna, Shelby, do you want to do the Discord thing? Do you want to, I know you're not on screen, but do you want to do this and we can disappear? Payton, thank you so much for agreeing to do this webcast with us today. We love having people from Open Security on our Hacking Cast. So enjoy, and thanks everybody for showing up. We'll talk to you after the show's over.
Yep. We'll be on the back end if anybody has any questions.
Awesome. So like Velda said, I'm just going to cover some housekeeping notes real quick while I hand presenter back over to you, Payton.
Awesome.
So just to remind everybody that all of our chat and QA for today is going to take place on our Discord server. We've shared the link in the chat a few times, but I'm going to share it again just in case anybody needs it. Right now we are in the live chat channel for all of the conversation and QA during the webcast. And there's also a slides channel right above that where you can find the slide deck for today. Along with that, I just want to remind everybody that if you can't stick around for the full webcast, that is okay. One of the new things we've actually started doing is live streaming these to YouTube. So that means the recording will be available right away as soon as the webcast is over for you. Along with that, if you're attending through GoToWebinar, you'll receive an email tomorrow containing your certificate of attendance from today. But again, you have to be attending through GoToWebinar to be able to receive that certificate. And with that, Payton, I will let you take it away.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you everybody for turning out for Advanced Phishing Threats, the real dangers of surfing the web. I myself am known as a little sus online. I am a cybersecurity engineer with Open Security, but I do some kind of odd tasks as well. One of the things I've been doing recently is managing the CTFs, managing the bot and the Discord for Open Security. I have a absolute ton of SANS certifications, but more than that, I like to break things. Now, not necessarily one web application at a time. I like to find ways to break hundreds, thousands of web applications. What I'm trying to find is a way that I can completely break the internet in one night. Whether that's something with the underlying trust that we invest into how we think something works, or a oversight that many developers have. These types of trends are something that I just absolutely love trying to find and utilize. Because if something is that deeply vested into somebody, no matter what you do, you're still going to believe it, even 10, 20, 30 years down the road. So as we get into this, we need to get a little bit of background. And so I'd like to get everybody on the same page just with what phishing actually is versus social manipulation. And so social manipulation, I just realized social manipulation is convincing a victim to divulge any amount of information. So maybe we want to know some type of internal policy. Maybe we want to know something as little as their email address. If we can use different techniques to try to gain this type of information, maybe we can create an attack that's targeted around what we know. And so social manipulation isn't necessarily collecting credentials. It isn't necessarily collecting names. It's a very diverse category of getting anybody to do anything that's beneficial for us. And we have different techniques. Phishing, the most well-known, that is using email. And so we might send you an email that tries to get you to click, interact, download, or perform some type of action on our behalf. Or we could get in a phone call with you. And, you know, hey, we're reaching out about your car's extended warranty. And so these are the types of things that social manipulation isn't strictly through phishing. I'm sorry, I need to click on the slide again. All right. Traditionally, phishing has had two types of identifiers, and that is the bait and the deadline. So we need to entice people to interact with our payload. So if we send them an email, we need them to click it immediately. These phishing campaigns, they can go online and they can be up for as little as 2 hours to maybe a month. And so within that time frame, we're not quite sure when it's going to get taken down, but the answer is it most likely will. So we need to send something that if you don't interact with this immediately, you'll be at a loss. Also, we need to consider, we don't want you to ignore the message and then come back to it later. Because if you ignore it, that gives you time to think about what you're actually doing. Do we want you to think about submitting your credentials and then come back and see that it's a scam later? No, we want you to take action immediately. And part of that helps with deadlines. If we tell you you have 3 days to do something, And if you don't do it in that 3 days, or maybe there's a coupon that expires by the end of today, then there's more likelihood that you'll feel an urgency to act on that impulse. So statistically, most domain names that are registered for phishing, they're utilized roughly from 2 to 14 days. And of these phishing campaigns, 43% pretend to be Microsoft. Now that's kind of interesting. Something we also have to realize is phishing, we're not trying to get one type of thing. We could be trying to get a lot of things. For example, credentials are always nice. They sell for a lot. But at the same time, if we can identify your address and your name, we might be able to sell that to a company at a much lower cost, but we can sell in bulk a lot more records. And depending on the accuracy of this data, we may actually be more financially motivated to do so. Finally, medical or private information, that sells for a lot as well. So why does this work? And frankly, it just works. If anybody's used Snapchat here, you'll see that something's off about this. And if you take more than 5 seconds to think about this message, you'll identify that's not right. Why would I click that? All that is an emoji with the words tap to view. What this is trying to imitate is this. And if you receive a message like this on Snapchat, what it actually is an image. And so, for example, this is the type of delivery, and it kind of looks legit. If you got this message while in a chat on Snapchat, you'd be tempted to click the red box because both of these messages have that inherent red cube. Now, as you can see here, one actually opens an image and the other doesn't. What's interesting about this is in the small test that I performed, 100% of people clicked on it. Now, there's no actual vulnerability here per se, but if I can persuade 100% of the people I send this to interact with the message, then potentially, if I found a vulnerability in Snapchat, I now have a way that 100% of people will click on this message. What's also interesting is Snapchat at the core is an image sharing service where you're supposed to send messages that delete themselves after 0 to 10 to infinite seconds. And so this is an underlying principle of the application. You even receive points on your profile for every message that you've received or sent. And so what that causes is people to send en masse tons of messages. Now, is that necessarily a bad thing? Not particularly, but when people inherently click on things, that could be weaponized. So from the internet landscape, where are we? Has phishing culture actually changed the last 20 years? Well, as more organizations try to grow using the internet, they find that they can trust third-party services. So, for example, in this hypothetical, let's say we're a financial company. And this financial company is a bank. And they have their internal login, they have their external login for their customers, they have their investing portfolio through a third party, some trusted brokerage. And if you go to their website, like their homepage, you can navigate to all of these different services through redirects. So now your customer base is trying to trust that all these domain names are valid. They're trying to trust that you're actually using this third-party brokerage. And so inherently, we trust that website to redirect to other websites. Now, historically, from a security perspective, we have advised people sitemap, XML, and robots.txt. That gives people too much information. So we don't want to give attackers too much information of where files are. So we shouldn't take credit for the web assets that we own. Why would an attacker need to know that we have that brokerage partner? Well, they might not need to know that, but maybe your clients do. And your clients aren't going to call you and ask. Instead, they're just going to interact with the link and hope, because your homepage redirected to them to that site. And that's part of the issue. What we've also seen is this transition to basically cloud environments that allow granular control over everything. And so in this case, we have consent-based phishing. So what happens is Microsoft has a product that allows you to run your entire business in the cloud, their entire Office 365 suite, and all of their upgrades for that. Now, they want to empower developers to continue making apps and continue to access data for this environment. And to do that, they've exposed APIs. These APIs empower applications to utilize information from your profile and information that you have access to. The downside of this is now this API can maintain access to data that I've given it access to. Now that in itself doesn't sound that bad. It can also read your contacts. Okay, I'm not too concerned with that one. It can sign in and read my profile. Okay, that I don't know what that entails, but it's probably not great. It can read my mail. Oh. It can send mail masquerading as me. That's great. It can read all of my OneNote notebooks. It can read and write to my mailbox settings, and it can have full access to all files that I have access to. And now with all of that data, it can also maintain access to all of that data that I've just given it access to. For how long? How do I get rid of this? And these are things that I genuinely don't know. So would I ever use an application like this? I would hope not. But if somebody tells me I need one for work, maybe I would. And so that started the problem. Why can a user account delegate all of these privileges? Should they be allowed to? Probably not. We've also seen a trend migrating towards the usage of third-party APIs. And so what happens is me as a website owner, I do not want your credential information. I do not want your social security number. And frankly, I don't even want your username and password. Because every single piece of data that I acquire, as you would create accounts, save data into my application, there's risk, especially with credentials. If I have to store those in a safe manner, then what happens when I get breached? Well, frankly, I have to take a step back. If I get breached, I have to notify everybody who has an account. I messed up. I lost your password. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Continue to use my service. We take security seriously. And I don't want to be put in that situation. So what I can do is I can adopt a third-party API. I can ask Google or Facebook or Microsoft, hey, is this user currently logged in with your service? If they are, who are they? And if you click that sign in with Google button and you click your user account, then Google will pass that information back to me and be like, oh, well, their email is this. And Facebook will do it, Microsoft will do it. And that's kind of how Stripe, Square, and PayPal process payment information too. Except that's more, the balance hits your account, and now you don't even have to think about managing money, which is great. So for the actual overall business owner or website owner, especially small teams, they no longer have to worry about these concerns. Real quickly, we'll go over some legacy techniques that for some reason still work. And these date back to before 2002, but they started writing laws to prevent them in 2002. And so, the classics, typo domain squatting. So if you want a website like Google, maybe you mangle it a little bit. You take out some characters, you add some characters, you duplicate some characters. Instead of google.com, you try google.net, google.org. Or you look at web assets owned by Google. So maybe Google owns android.com. So now you look for androiddevelopment.com or something like that. You use their own naming scheme against them because frankly, if Google claims to own Android and they own, let's say, clouddevelopment.com, don't know if they do, then a user might draw the insight they also own Android development or androiddeveloper.com. And there's no valid way to check this because organizations don't particularly take credit for the services that they own, especially on the domains that they own them. And so as you can see, I wrote a very quick Python parser just to enumerate possible combinations of domain names and various words to append to the end of them. So it's kind of interesting if you happen to mistype some of these, you may be sent to an adversaries page, which may actually look like Google. Now, moving forward, this is one of my preferred methods, and it's interesting how it works. Internationalized domain names. So obviously not everything is in English, you know? So what we utilize is some of these alternate characters that are technically available on the internet to use to form words. And so as you can see here, Microsoft looks a little bit weird. The M in Microsoft is actually in Cyrillic, and the entire Twitter domain there looks completely off the rails. Well, that happens to be completely Cyrillic. And if you keep to one character set, I find you don't get detected as quickly, but somebody usually shuts you down pretty quickly. Now, I highly recommend not trying this at home, and the reason why I feel so comfortable sharecasing these particular domains is, well, frankly, they work. And you can actually send mail as them. As you can see, the XN Unicode conversion is shown as the signed by address, which to the normal public means absolutely nothing because it stemmed from the TLS certificate, which could be a checksum or who knows what else. Even as an engineer, I wasn't sure what this meant. I saw twitter.com and sure enough, it looks like twitter.com. Now, this is mail from an account that I used to have. And I say used to because I'm never getting it back. Google sent me a nice little correspondence one night as I was doing research for this talk. They received reports that apparently I've been phishing. What a surprise. And what's interesting about their email that they sent me is that they're going to suspend my domain or my account, which is a very bad thing, and I should take immediate action to remediate these issues within 3 days. Now, what are the two identifiers for phishing? There's a deadline and there's basically an ultimatum. If you don't perform an action, something bad will happen. So after responding to this message, what do you think Google wanted from me? And I open this to the Discord, just real quick. They wanted, I'll hint at it. They wanted some type of file from me Okay. I'll give it one more second for everybody typing to get in. So everybody's saying a fairly consensus of username, password, photo ID, verification, credentials. What's your dog's name? Copy of your driver's license. There is Cyrillic characters. In fact, these are the same examples from the previous slide. So what they actually wanted from me is an internal or external vulnerability assessment. They wanted proof that I have made changes to remediate the issues and that my services were now secure. Now, what's interesting about that is why does my web registrar need a vulnerability assessment. Huh. Well, obviously they want to know that it's not going to happen again, which, that makes sense. But the downside is, do I trust Google with a vulnerability assessment of my DMZ? And they were very brief in their automated response because it was definitely a copy-paste message with no added information for the situation. But when they're going to cancel your domain registrations or terminate your account, and for businesses, having your web page remain on your web page is incredibly important. So that's how great the risk is, that they want a vulnerability assessment within 3 days. On the market, that's at least $20,000, depending on how many agents are in your DMZ. In this case, I only had 3 DigitalOcean droplets, but in 3 days, that's ridiculous. Half the time, you can't even sign the papers necessary to actually authorize this type of test in that time frame. So it's kind of interesting that what they sent me there seems like the perfect fish. You have 3 days to do something. If you fail to do this, I will ban your account. And it just so happens that maybe I need a vulnerability assessment to get inside information about your organization because you did a bad. Now, and so that's interesting. What they have sent me is an entirely legitimate email. But can you even imagine how we could use this maliciously? And it would be so easy. So now we're going to get into achieving legitimacy through complexity on the web. As we previously discussed, domain names, they redirect to each other, especially on corporate websites. So if we can find, I actually did forward them a Nessus scan as well as Acunetics and updated DNS rules. And I still didn't get back. Surprise, surprise. So if we can find vulnerabilities like open redirections or cross-site scripting, then maybe we can gain the legitimacy of a very high level and trusted domain name. So if we can get yourbank.com and we can have it redirect to yourbankincorporated.com, which I now own, is there legitimacy there? Of course. And maybe that website says you need a security update because your Chrome's out of date and you need to download this file. Surely nobody would download a file from yourbankinc.com. Something else we see is, and it's kind of interesting, link filtering. This is technically a security control. And so what it does is whenever you send a URL, certain email providers will replace that URL with a URL controlled by that platform. And so what this means is that when I click that link, technically they will send me to Google eventually, but first they'll use AI to scan and make sure it's safe. If they ever detect that's malicious, suddenly they have full control over that link and they can stop it from working. The only downside here is, in this case, you can kind of see there's a question mark URL equals HTTP some Unicode URL encoded noise, google.com. And so looking at this, it takes you a solid 15-30 seconds on average to identify that this might be google.com. It might be actually a search off of google.com, or it could redirect you elsewhere. You really can't tell because of all of this Unicode encoding, or sorry, URL encoding. And so the benefits are, if nobody's looking at the links before they click them, yes, now Microsoft can act as an intermediary and scan sites for you, which is great. Thank you, Microsoft. But if your staff know what's actually occurring here and are trying to look for these domain names that may or may not be malicious, they won't be able to identify what site they're being sent to. And that's almost counterproductive to a point where it invalidates the entire security control here. We can also use online services to perform malicious tasks. So link shorteners do one thing, shorten links. If we want to use t.co, that's Twitter, if we want to use bit.ly, that's free and public. Facebook.me used to be available. I'm not quite sure how you get a hold of it anymore, but I did receive this interesting text message that may or may not be actually legit. And I'm not sure, because frankly, who can register a Facebook.me link? And presumably, it would be no one. But in reality, there used to be a way for people to do this. And so it's interesting using link shorteners to shorten links so that you don't know where you're being sent. You can also use the corporate level file hosts to store your files, obviously. And S3 buckets are trusted by organizations. So if you have files stored on an S3 bucket, maybe that organization's endpoint detection won't flag it. Maybe Google user content is a trusted domain because it's owned by Google. And so with these types of techniques, we also get into utilizing free cloud hosting from Google. So if we utilize something like AppSpot or Firebase, we can host our own content, which tells people something particular, but we also get a free domain while doing it. Now, unfortunately, I don't know how much trust you would get with Mozilla-Firefox-updates.web.app, but I'm willing to bet it's more than you would think. We can also use website creators and forums to host and collect information. And so what's kind of interesting is the website creators themselves. Everybody's seen ads for them. You know what Wix is. Well, you've heard of Wix, even if you don't know what it is. Which means if I send you a site to .wixsite.com, maybe you inherently trust it because you've heard of it before. Squarespace, same thing, they have advertisements. WordPress, they're the #1 platform in the world, supposedly. So if I can utilize any of these types of subdomains or these platforms as a whole, maybe there's added legitimacy. What we discussed in the earlier slides is that phishing can be credential collection. But if it's not credential collection, then what is it? So we want to collect medical and private information, right? What better way to do that than a form that is built to collect your private information? And so you could easily use Google Forms or Microsoft Forms. And is that technically against their TOS? Well, potentially. If you try to collect username and passwords, I would hope so. But they have templates to collect addresses from people. So it's interesting. Now, what's interesting is we can utilize services exactly how they're expected to be used. Say a calendar, for instance. How many people can place an event on your calendar? And frankly, that number is way too high. Anybody externally can. And what you'll receive in a lot of cases is an email saying, hey, there's this event on your calendar. It happens in 5 minutes. You're expected to be there. And so now, you're a low-level employee, very technical. You need to be in that client call. And so you will do whatever it takes to attempt to attend. And if the adversary does a little bit of research on LinkedIn, maybe they find out what team you work with or who you work with on a daily basis, maybe a project manager at your company. And as they start to identify this type of hierarchical structure, they can invite you to a call with all of the people that should be there. And if you download whatever software or join whatever using their meeting software, which is kind of expected, it may actually be malware in disguise. Something we've seen recently is actually using illegitimate businesses to gain legitimacy. So there's 2 businesses, and these are not, I'll let you determine your own thoughts on the matter. There is the salary analytical firm, Argyle and FinTech. And so they're willing to pay people $500 for payroll information, except you have to provide your username and password so that they can log in and validate this info. That's okay. And something else that we've seen, I think just last week, the fake cybersecurity company based out of Russia, which they hired actual security employees and tricked them into conducting ransomwares as part of a pen test. This is the type of thing that happens, and the actual end consumer is the only one that's really being affected here. Now we can do something that I absolutely love. Trust relationships with OAuth. So, frankly, if we go to a shady looking website, do we trust it enough to create an account with an email, with a password, maybe with a name? No, of course not. Why would we? But do we trust the website to log in with Google? And I would like to say no, but unfortunately, that Google button, it carries the same weight as that Snapchat red square, right? Because everybody has used Google OAuth at some point in their life. It's incredibly simple. Why would you create a ton of accounts when you could just use Google? And so I actually have a file here, and I'm going to pull it up. Oh no, somebody signed into my account. They're using a Dell XPS based out of Moscow. That's interesting. That was not me. And so as you can see, here's a website that seemingly looks kind of legitimate. It's definitely not, but whether or not you decide to secure my account or that it was indeed you, what's occurring here is Google is actually giving you too much information. We shouldn't know this because we're not logged in. And so the issue is, do we want to secure my account? Of course. Or if we're actually based out of Russia and we actually own a Dell XPS, maybe it was us. So no matter which button we press here, we get an OAuth prompt. That's how that should work, right? Well, unfortunately, that's not actually an OAuth window. In fact, if we open this web browser, if we open this page in Firefox, there's Firefox one. And if we take a step back, okay, Firefox is cool and all. Nobody would target Mac, right? Because Macs are secure. Macs don't have malware, of course not. And so if we switch our user agent to Mac, oh, what's this? So as you can see, we have a lot of what appear to be OAuth pop-up windows, but in reality, they're not. Okay. So what's kind of interesting is this, for example. And if you type in your credentials, give me 1 second. SLGmail.com. Ah, nice. We got a nice animation too. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. And now it redirects us to our logged in account. Huh. Now, how did we do this? How does this work? Because that's not how that should work, right? OAuth is secure. There's no way we could spoof it. And unfortunately, it's a 3-dimensional element. As you can see here, the URL bar, and that's the easiest to identify here, is actually a text box. That's it. And so as you can see, what we've done is a layering attack. We've done a transparency and window attack to make it look like a new window's actually opened. In reality, it hasn't. All we've done is incredibly fancy HTML styling. That's it. And how many people would trust that untrusted site to use OAuth? Kind of interesting. We can also perform subdomain impersonation. And so, as anybody will tell you, standards are 100% true and there's no exceptions. The allowed characters in a subdomain are A through Z, 0 through 9, hyphen, underscore, and periods as delineators. And you can have up to 63 ranges and 255 characters, depending on your registrar. Okay, so what can we do with this information? And frankly, this. Should we? No, that would be horrible. but we could, in theory. We can also do a ton of A's, because of course we can. Or http.steam.com.forum- okay, that's starting to look legit, and I don't like it. So as you can see, all of these domains can actually, or sorry, subdomains can be registered in DNS. And here's a screenshot from Google with a domain name that I don't own. Please don't ban it. What we do is we find a website that has a really long URL. We utilize a simple HTML web form to convert it into whatever we'd like, and we simply update the DNS. And so, as you can see here, I've done a few conversions with regex to create this. Now, what here is actually the domain name? Well, the domain name always has to be the last thing in the URL. And so in this case, it's test.download. But the issue with this is there's so much there that on a mobile device, you'll only see the front of it. Also, so you'll see cdn.discordapp.com, and you'll see the hyphen, but you won't think much of it because the internet's weird sometimes. What you'll also see, potentially, if you're on a desktop computer and it's a really wide screen, you may actually see this entire domain name. But at the end of the day, this looks like a file download. And so if the domain name itself is a very obscure top-level domain name like .download, maybe that's legitimate. Maybe you could get a .photos domain name and then have the fully qualified domain name as test.photos. This is a possibility. Finally, we're getting into something that I absolutely love, and it's left to right overrides and right to left overrides. Now, why do I like text encoding? Because it breaks things, sometimes the entire internet at the same time. And so as you can see, the English language goes from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, while Arabic, Hebrew, and some other languages go from the right side of the screen to the left side of the screen. Now that's interesting. How do we break it? Well, Windows has a particular feature for a while now. They support both of these things simultaneously. You can start a text input with left to right. Okay. Decide maybe halfway through you want to switch it to right to left, and then you can finish your expression. So how is this powerful? What's being rendered there isn't necessarily what's typed. Now, is this a vulnerability? Of course not. It's a feature. Features can't be exploited. Oh dear. So as you can see, what I've done here is I've provided some samples of how RTLO and LTRO, which is left to right override and right to left override, can actually be used in file names. And so what you see here is 2021 XCOD summary, it doesn't make sense. But if you read what it's displayed as in Windows, 2021 executive summary.docs. And so if anybody sees that file, because .docs is the last 4 characters in the file extension, surely it's a docs document, right? The downside is the Unicode equivalent actually states that it's a .exe. And so you can see a few attempts of this, which I find particularly interesting. You can do a .inc, which kind of makes it look like a mock-up or something. You can even pretend that the file extension is a name, so like .jschafer. And the interesting thing about that is if the file extension's hidden, it now becomes Schaefer account invoice.pdf. So these are considerations that we have to have. And my personal favorite there, for some reason, some legacy support, .com files are now technically .exe files in disguise, which means Amazon.com is actually Amazon.exe, although it looks like a PDF invoice. And so as we take a look at what this actually looks like in Windows, you can see Amazon looks very legitimate with file name extensions disabled. But as soon as we enable them, oh, that might actually be, I mean, it's a docs, right? And so a lot of the time you fall for things like this. What I've actually written is a slight generator to ease the creation of such files, because I'm a great person. And as you can see here in this actual demo, I've done a lot of random noise with exe.wmv. And so what happens is it's actually implementing a character to flip .exe and vmw visually. And my tool will do it in all 6 configurations you could possibly want. File extension in the beginning, file extension reversed, file extension in the middle, file extension in the middle reversed, or at the end. Any of the 6 possibilities for this type of attack. Now, like I said at the beginning of this talk, I like to break everything simultaneously. I don't like to break a single web application. I like to break everyone's understanding and trust of everything. And so how do we do that? Well, okay. On the left here, it looks like a Microsoft.com email. This is not technically spoofed, so maybe it has legitimacy. We just talked about RTLO characters, so I'll give you a second to try to figure out what's happening there. In the meantime, we can see the Amazon.com invoice.docs, which was previously generated, and everyone here should know that that's actually a .com, which is actually a .exe. So that's a .exe file, but it looks like a document, even in this zip preview. Interesting. Now, on the left here, I don't actually own Microsoft.com. I can't actually make a Microsoft.com user account. What I can do is I own l1tt.cc. Google, please don't ban me. And so what I could do with this, in theory, is inject a right to left override somewhere in this equation. I'm not going to detail where. But what's going to happen is my domain name's reversed. And for some reason, now it exists before where it should. And it's been swapped with the username. So what I actually have here as the username is moc dot and Microsoft backwards. Really weird, really convincing, and frankly, it just works. So what can we do across the board? How do we protect ourselves, you know? Well, if you use a password manager, that has some security benefits. And for something really advanced like a transparency layering attack, it may give you just enough time to catch the red flag because it's not going to autofill your password. And that might give you enough thought, enough hesitation. I don't want to put my credentials in this website. Now, it may also frustrate you and you'll think that your password manager may be not working how it's supposed to be. And sometimes that's possible when you have multiple domains for a single service. And so you may decide to put in your credentials anyway. So what's the next defense? Well, two-factor authentication. Because if you provide me your credentials, then you provide me two-factor authentication, I have until that two-factor authentication expires, in many cases, to utilize it. For more sensitive accounts, this may be a 15-second timeout. If you utilize authentication factor authenticator through Google or some type of mobile app management, the keys automatically get regenerated. But the issue with this is if you get a phone text message, those cost money. If you get an email, maybe that costs money to an organization. So with those, it might be a 15-minute timeout and give us enough time to automatically log in to your account with the information you've provided. So two-factor authentication and password managers together make a really good line of defense. But unfortunately, that's all they are, a line of defense. We have to be vigilant in detecting these. And as we covered at the beginning of the presentation, the average domain is deployed for phishing within 2 days to 2 weeks. So if you have some type of anti-malware scanner or some completely awful, and I suggest this, antivirus through your browser which is then potentially, just based on domain registration alone, it may flag that as a not safe site. I would not rely on that as a actual security defense, but it is an option. For transparency layering attacks, which are obviously not your everyday campaign, maybe something as silly as a Chrome theme. If you're used to Windows popping up with a rainbow theme, and now you see a black theme because you're using Windows dark mode, maybe that's enough to protect you and think maybe that's not a legit window because everybody else's Chrome should be black, but mine should be rainbow. The historical suggestion has been, if you can avoid clicking a link, don't click on it. And that's great advice. In theory, it doesn't work. At the end of the day, if you see this type of link, maybe you work, maybe you have a job, maybe you have access to information that you have to do for other people. You have to click on links to function on the internet. So telling people to navigate to it themselves. In your inbox, sometimes for incredibly sensitive services, yeah, that makes sense. I would not click on a link to go log into your bank. But if you could do that, it might be useful. And so regular internal training is obviously a great way to get sensitized to some of the weird things that we can do on the web, especially trainings like this. For a organization standpoint, you need to set valid DNS, DMARC, and DKIM records in your DNS. There's other tutorials on how to do this, but what it prevents is email spoofing. It prevents a user from saying, hey, I'm sending this message from Outlook, so obviously I'm the big boss at companyname.com. And so if you set these types of policies, then in theory, spoofing should be substantially harder. Something else to note, just as a rule of thumb moving forward, try to reduce unnecessary domain redirections. The more that happens on your services, the less your clients will actually trust them. Because if they keep getting bounced from site to site to site, Microsoft, wow, that was weird. Then maybe you'll become a target of a phishing scheme because redirection is weird. Do you really trust that you start to load a web page and then get sent back to the authentication panel? Probably not. Also, a consideration as we move forward into this climate might be consider exposing a list of your domain names. Now, before doing so, make sure that they're incredibly thoroughly tested. But at the end of the day, you might actually want to take ownership of some of these sprawled out services. Overall, maintain web service with regular assessments and make sure there's no vulnerabilities there, because obviously security is important. Now, real briefly, I'll go over a few of the effective training techniques and what type of culture that I envision in all of the organizations that I personally would like to work with. Companies should try to be open and have some type of positive reinforcement. If you fall for a phishing campaign, that shouldn't be a punishable offense, because honestly, even the Snapchat thing, I click on it. And do you expect a message to be malicious inherently? And if your organization's set up correctly, you shouldn't. And living that constant distrust will actually make your work style so much harder. If we offer these benefits, people will want to learn more. Now, one of the downsides is that executives love statistics, and they want to see, I want my security posture to grow over time. I want it to be better than it was last year. And the only way to do that is by continuing testing that is approximately simulating the same thing year and year again. So if we start to run out of ideas, if we start to target other potential means of delivery, those statistics can't be cross-correlated, and that might be an issue for some executives. A lot of the time, the highest of executives, they don't want to be targeted because they don't have time for the simulation. And honestly, they're the biggest targets at the organization. They're the ones with all of the access. So if we can gain access to that and we can target those, that is substantially more valuable to us as testers than, say, all of your help desk internal people that are tier 1 help desk. Don't get me wrong, that's useful. But if I could pwn the CEO and then send out an email that everyone needs to download this file, then that is significantly more valuable to me as an attacker. As previously mentioned, training individuals to not click on these types of links is counterproductive and not realistic. Our reports typically contain viewed message counts. Now, what that actually means is how many people clicked on an email. And I hate this because it's important to say, we send an email out, only 60% of your company has actually opened it. Maybe it got lost in their inbox. Maybe it got sent to spam. That's something that we should try to identify. But for an organization saying, 60% of people knew it was spam before it even, well, maybe, but also that's not necessarily true. And the unfortunately world that we live in is, honestly, we're not going to pay off your employees, but malicious actors might. Because if it's that profitable to them, why wouldn't they give you $150 a week for verified salary information? Because they can afford that cost. Adversaries will come at you and say, holiday bonuses. They aren't confined by morals. And so at the end of the day, the big takeaway is that simulations are simply simulations. I've linked to a few additional resources here for other ways to set up phishing, other ways of, and interesting articles breaking the web using DNS lookups and cross-site scripting, and all of the research that was done that I could find on right-to-left overrides. It was not as in-depth as I've pushed it. If anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them now. I'm also available on those platforms if you'd like to reach out to me. All of the files available here are actually available on GitHub, including the generator scripts and the presentation slides themselves. So if you are interested in anything that I've showcased, except for the multi-layering user agent attack, that is mine alone. You can try to replicate it. I am not giving that one out. So thank you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Payton. Usually at the end, if we have a few minutes left, we like to see if anyone has any questions before we leave. So I'm going to give it a minute to see if anybody has anything in Discord they want to ask. I love Sensei's comment. I got an email today from a private investigator looking for me because I have a big inheritance waiting for me. Yeah, that's a good one.
My eyes are gone now. Oh, sorry, are open now. I have a cord in front of my screen. That's great, thank you. Smithereens, that's what I'm here for. Slugna, I believe it was both transmitted through this platform and YouTube, and I think the YouTube link's already been shared. It's been live streamed and should be available afterwards.
Yes, it's available right now and will continue to be available at that link. I love Smithereens, this broke my brain a bit. It's awesome. But
that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions come through, just a lot of like, this was awesome, this opened up my mind. Actually, one question, any further classes in this?
I'd like to at some point, and actually I might try to find some new techniques and offer it at a future Wild West Hack Fest, but currently there's no plans for any classes in the works.
Payton, perhaps we could talk about a workshop. Maybe that might be kind of a fun thing at Wild West Hackin Fest.
That could be fun. I don't know how I would do that. I'll get in touch with you guys afterwards.
Awesome.
Planting the seeds, Payton. Planting the seeds.
Hopefully the seeds of doubt based off the context of this presentation.
I love Eel Talon said, I won't be able to sleep now. Treader said, how to simple user avoid the bid directional trick. Not sure if you see that one.
Okay, so as you can see here, what's interesting about this bidirectional trick is that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't with file name extensions alone. Now, whatever your company policy is, when I write an exploit to try to attack this, I have to think of a way that it works for both file name extensions being disabled and enabled, or I have to find out some type of internal information about how that's configured in your organization. Additionally, you'll see a very important field here. The type is actually an application or a MS-DOS application. Now, the downside to requiring this is that there are a lot of file extensions which automatically execute on Windows. For example, .js inherently runs JavaScript, which is actually JScript, which is actually a variant of C script, which actually launches W shell. So if we look for the fact that this is an application, we could also send a payload that's VBS or JavaScript or any of the other file extensions that automatically execute. Another one that's very useful is .lnk. That's a shortcut to any file on the computer. If we assume you have access to PowerShell, then our malware could automatically execute in that PowerShell. So the best solution to avoid clicking a .exe would be identifying that that's the type of application. But the unfortunate reality is it could also be JavaScript. It could also be a shortcut. It could also be, but right now that's the best idea I have on how to remediate that.
All right. And we have kind of two questions that I'm going to throw at you into one that we're going to take on here. And then if there are any more questions, I'm sure, Payton, you're willing to hang out in the Discord for a little bit and answer anything that anyone has. But the last one I'm going to give you here is training individuals not to click on links can result in loss of productivity. Can you explain this? And then also with that, do you have any suggestions on effective training for employees identifying links?
So training individuals to not click on links can result in loss of productivity. So if I receive a meeting invite and I've been trained not to click on links, and that meeting invite is completely legitimate, it's from my boss, it's about my personal evaluation, let's say, then how do I get in that meeting without clicking on that link? And the answer is you don't, unless you can go some incredibly backroads way to achieve the same task. Maybe it is possible in theory to go to Google, search for your bank, and find the login page. That's possible. But if somebody shares a file with you through OneDrive, through Google Drive, and you don't click that link, how will you access that file? And at the end of the day, you won't. And maybe that file is required for work. So by training people to not click on links and then expecting them to click on links, we've just effectively, well, do they click the link? Do they not click the link? And it's really hard to train that. Mm-hmm. One of the things I've heard is try to understand that the link is everything in between the slashes. And that's not necessarily a bad technique to identify what the link is, assuming you're not using link filtering. But what you really have to realize is, and I don't like this as a recommendation either, because there's so many different situations. Everything's different. Typically, .com is the most trusted. I really don't like that as an example, or that you should inherit trust into a top-level domain, but it's been around the longest, and a lot of the popular endings are gone. But with that said, you can still register things like account-reset.com. And then what you can do is www.facebook.account-reset.com. So that's not even a good solution. And so at the end of the day, you need to, I guess, train to look for red flags, which if anybody's willing to put in the work, they can get around. I have never seen anybody go through as much trouble as that transparency attack. I've seen something similar, but they wrote it to only support one web browser. And so in that type of case, if you navigate to a site and there's any type of red flag, there's any type of misspelling, don't submit your information, but there's not really a better solution that I can offer for that. And that's why we're in the world that we're in. And a lot of the time, the techniques that I've showed off here, you don't need them to get people to click on or download your stuff. There's no reason to. It's like adversaries creating entire organizations to fool people or try to ransom companies. There's other ways to ransom companies that take a lot less work. So while these are possible, I don't think we're at a point in our lives where a lot of these are actually a real concern. And maybe now that I've showed them off, they will be for the next month. You're welcome. But I really don't have anything better from a training perspective.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again, Payton, for the awesome presentation. I know I kind of agree with, some of the other comments we read earlier, it's going to be hard to sleep at night kind of thing. I mean, this stuff is definitely important to learn, but it makes you a little paranoid. And
Gotta know
I just
what's out there in the dark.
Right. So before we go, I'm just going to remind everybody again that if you couldn't catch the entire webcast, if you missed the beginning, that's okay. You can catch it now actually on our YouTube channel. So that is up for everyone. Along with that, if you're attending through GoToWebinar right now, you'll receive an email tomorrow afternoon containing a certificate of attendance that you can use for CPE credits. I'm also going to remind everybody one more time that we have a Purple Team Roundup coming up soon. It's going to be the beginning of December on the 2nd. And if you don't know what the Roundup is, it's basically a 4 or 5 hour long session with presentations like this with different speakers in the industry. And the one in December will be on purple teaming. And thank you again, Payton. Hopefully we will see you in one of the upcoming Wild West Hacking Fest events.
Hopefully. And just as a final, if you do want to reach out after the presentation, that is my Twitter and my Discord.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again, Payton. Everybody else, have a great afternoon.
Thank you for having me.